Alright, hey everybody, it's HeapCVA. Welcome back to my channel if you're returning, or welcome if you've never been here before. Someday I'll actually get that right when I say it. But if I recorded every time I tripped over that one thing, I'd never get a video out, I swear. So, here we are in tutorial number 4 for 911 First Responders / Emergency 4. And we're still in the config file for the base game. And what I'm going to do is close out this particular part of the tutorials, the config part of the tutorials. Because honestly, while there are many things you could fool around with in the config, most of them at the end of the day left at the value that came with the game make everything work just fine. I think most of us that are interested in going past the base game are more focused on how to work with mods. And the base game too, quite honestly. But there are some other things that we just have to kind of walk away from the config file for a while. Will we come back to it later? Maybe if there's something pops up, but I don't know. I've left it alone except for the things I've really showed you, and things have done pretty well for me. I'm pretty happy with them. So let's talk briefly about what's left in here that could remotely interest you as you're learning more depth of the what's behind the curtain, so to speak, for this game. So as we scroll down from the top of the thing, you get down to this one here, which is the autosave file path. Now, you can, if you do the missions, and you can actually play missions in the mods too, don't forget. And you want to save and come back. The game autosaves to a specific file, but you can change that file if you're so inclined. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Somebody would have to explain it to me. I don't play the missions, so I just simply don't know the answer. But it is one thing that's easy to change, and if a mistake is made, go right back to your notes, so to speak. And like I said previously, and I'll remind you again, any changes you make in the config file, please make a copy of the config before you make changes and save it somewhere. That way, if a mistake is made or something doesn't work, you miss the period after one of the numbers that needs it or whatever it is, because you never know, you have something to back you up. So that's one thing. Let's go down a little farther. There's our favorite max cam and max cam Z and pitch, min cam Z and pitch. Here we have this one here. Now, the only reason I show you this is if you have a lot of Steam games, and let's say you play some of them online and you have screen names that vary slightly between games based on what you're doing. When you finish a game here and you get your points, because you know, when even in the free play you get points for how far you get, it looks for your name in this value statement, and that's what it puts on that little scoreboard that you see as the game ends. Well, if it sees that blank, it's going to look in some other places for it. How far in depth does it go? I know when I installed the game, it used my real name because it found it in a file. I guess that was the file that my email and my photos and all that stuff were on. So if you publicize your videos, you may not want to use your real name, and so you'll want to change that. And here's the place to do it. And what it does, it creates a default gamer name for this game. So that's there. It's very simple. You just highlight the space in between the quotes, put whatever you want in there. Scroll speed. There's two settings. There's this one here, and there's one down at the bottom called mouse speed. Now, and this is for when you move from right to left, up to down as you're going across the map. And remember that you can also use the arrow keys if you have a keyboard that's wide enough that has that. In the base game, as it's installed brand new, the mouse moves fairly slow. If you want to increase that speed, try mouse speed value of a higher number. I honestly don't know what the base number is. I've changed this value so long ago, I've absolutely forgotten what it used to look like. But go in small steps, like I said, make your changes, see if it works. If it doesn't work, change it back. There's one in here that I've heard talked about. I don't personally have a need to do anything with it, but it's there nonetheless. And it's not the only place that there is something like that. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at from here to, oh, let's say here. I don't know why it didn't give me that, but we'll try again. There you go. This is, if you want to fool around with sunrise and sunset, if you think that you don't get enough sunshine, let's say you're playing a West Coast mod and you want more summer, you can change these values. Notice they have periods after them. And fool around with how long you get sun versus when the sun sets and you get dark. I've never fooled with it because part of the challenge of playing the game is also managing incidents in the dark. But it is something that I've seen mentioned a couple of times. This is where it is, and you can tweak it if you'd like to try it. I honestly, for me, there's other things I'd much rather be doing. We scroll back down here. There's a couple of things. This one here, and I color it to highlight it. FOV stands for field of view. Any of you that have ever played Call of Duty know what this means. Because as you were running and trying to operate your weapon systems and see out into the field to see people coming at you, sometimes your field of vision was pretty narrow compared to real life. And there was really no way in some of the versions of Call of Duty to fix that and widen it out. And in fact, I belong to a clan that if you found a way to modify the field of vision, that was considered cheating. But in here, what it would do is give you more width to the map that you see on the screen. But what it'll do is, you know, it's managed by how big your screen is. So if you want to see more real estate, you've got to make the picture smaller. But it's there just the same. Another one I'm looking for here, and I couldn't remember if it was above that or below it. And of course, somewhere, and somehow I actually missed it. You see, and you stare at this for so long, you start looking right through things that you need to see. So what I'm looking for is called Show FPS. And there is a setting in here, if I can find it. Still not finding it. Doesn't that get you when that happens? I went through this before I started recording, so I'd know where all that stuff was. And there's always got to be one thing that decides to trip me up. Well, there's one I didn't put on my list that I just saw, and that's this one right here. And that talks about mod paths. You can actually, when you're creating mods or you're saving a mod, you can actually save it to another file other than where it is. I wouldn't fool with it, quite honestly, unless you really are out of space. There's a save path value for a couple of things. Unless you have a very small hard drive and you're really squeezed for space, I wouldn't fuss with it too much. I'm just saying that of all the things in here that the words don't necessarily make sense right away, those are some of the ones that are easy. And here's the one I was looking for. This is called Show FPS. Now, if you were playing this game on a laptop with a motherboard-driven video chip, it's not a card, separate card, it's just the video that comes on it. If you have an Intel, it'd be through the CPU or CPU. And you're noticing that it seems to be lagging and stuff like that, which I would have to say your system is a little old, because any newer game should be just whooping this game as far as frames per second. You can actually have the game show the FPS or frames per second value on the screen when you're playing the game. I know this was probably a big deal when this game first came out. If your system has followed the new trends and, you know, kind of kept up at least within a year of new hardware, you're okay. You probably will never have to look at that. Plus, just about every video card has its own way of showing FPS anyway, so it's kind of, you know, half in one, dozen in the other. So that's the simple stuff that's left in the config file that caught my eye. It made me think that I should at least say something about them, even though I don't recommend that you make any changes other than maybe change the gamer name, the player name value, if you need to. And leave it at that. There's some settings in here as well for multiplayer. But until I get some answers on, because things have changed quite a bit since when this game first came out. Unless you're doing a LAN party where everybody's in basically the same room, there are some things that are out there to trip you up as far as just creating an open port on your computer and letting people come in. I think it's 5 maximum. Maybe that you don't know, or one that you do and one that you don't if you're advertising it. That I haven't gotten a direct answer yet on what's the safest way to do that to avoid somebody getting into your computer or overwriting files or doing something that's not positive and causing trouble. But that's in this as well. But I'm not going to mention it because I don't have the answers for that yet. Because a lot of people ask me all the time, when are you going to play multiplayer? Oh, there's several maps that I have that are multiplayer based or available for that. In fact, even LA, the original LA mod has a multiplayer version. I'm not quite there yet. And so, you know, my thought process was to have the game on a separate server and let people come in to play. I have to know that I can afford that because sometimes it's expensive depending on how much you use it. And I want to make sure that whoever's going to host it for me understands gaming and it's just not a place to put websites. You know what I mean? So that's about it for this tutorial. It's more of a show and tell than it is a tutorial, but these things are here. And I think from this point on, we're going to step away from the config file. And our next tutorial, if we're going to go into some other folders in the base games folder directory and start looking at some other things that are simple but good things to know what to do with that will make the game, whether it's the base game or a mod, play the way you want it to play versus the way it was originally designed, which is your choice at the end of the day in this game, believe it or not. Many games don't give you that choice. This particular game does. So we'll end this one here. Thank you so much for coming by my channel. I always appreciate it. I love seeing the comments, the requests for other tutorials, the back and forth that I'm having with some people that, you know, we don't know each other we wouldn't know each other if we bumped into each other at an airport, but yet we trade info back and forth like we've known each other for years. I think that's awesome. And the people that are subscribing, that are coming back and forth to the channel, I can't even describe what my brain thinks about that. It's just amazing to me. So that being said, I'm continuing to do the hard work of putting good stuff on my channel. Hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, have any suggestions for another tutorial and stuff like that, let me know in the comments. And I'll get back to making good stuff, some more tutorials. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.